The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. If I, as an individual and an entity, operate from the vantage point of I want this and I want that, or I don't want this or I don't want that, that for many people is their vitalizing motivational paradigm of value. Do I want it or don't I? And that's as far as their thinking or their feeling goes. I either want this or I don't want it. It's very polar. It's very right, wrong, good, bad, true, false, dualistic as a dynamic. And many people have been taught to want and to move from want and or feeding of ego gratification or desire gratification as a way of life. They've been taught that that is what Western civilization is about, the monetization of everything in order to fulfill want, which is greed in some ways, or is ignorance of the unfolding dynamics, the results of operating and being motivated by want, rather than motivated by love, then motivated by higher principle or higher spiritual vantage point or consciousness or service. So as a motivational paradigm for individuals, teams, and groups, and organizations and nations, and as a species, we would suggest that it's important to transcend, and then it's not wrong to want. We're not judging wantingness. We're suggesting that other motivating energies and values are necessary. Spiral dynamics is an evolution of values and motivational energies and emotions and properties and qualities and dynamics of consciousness that spiral upward into more wholesome, sustainable life process. And so we would suggest that spiral dynamics is a useful study. We wouldn't say it's the entire story. We would say it is a significant piece to the puzzle that is worthy of integration into your life process and your toolbox as you present in future, as you collaborate as teams and individuals, and and when we meet other organizations. You may be familiar with a book called The Secret, where The Secret was an excellent book, metaphysical, and had quantum physics included in it. We might suggest that in much of that, in the envisioned fulfillment of what we want was kind of validated and seen as an end-all process. We're not saying that they were saying that. We're saying that's just an interpretation that might be derived from that approach. So the concept of thriving in the world is that basically saying you get what you want, or you have what you want, when you want it, how you want it, why you want it, the way you want it. And that fulfillment, that feeding dynamic is voracious and insatiable. Wanting doesn't get satiated. We just look for something new to want. Eventually, we learn our way through and out of that into consciousness, and want becomes a faint echo from the past. We can operate from love and service and care and kindness and compassion. And that can be our value proposition, if you will. That can be our single decision-making vantage point. That said, to shift in gears in those ways requires conscious choice and intention, as well as a lot of experience. If we lived 1,000 years ago in a mud hut in Nepal, and we had just enough food and water to survive, and we looked at that food and water and shelter as our needs being fulfilled, and that's all we had ever experienced, does that make sense that the Western lifestyle is a very different experience of life than living in a mud hut in Nepal? And that would give us a different frame of reference in regard to both wants and needs, meaning that there's a big difference between a want and a need. It's really, really good to have indoor plumbing and flushing toilets. And the world has existed for billions of years without them until just now. So we would suggest that people have become habituated to these wonderful technologies that we've just developed in the last 100 or 150 years, and that what used to be a want has now been turned into, in our internal systems of preference and habit and expectation, to be a need. So there are a lot of people in the world that don't have all of the wonderful material goods and air conditioning and indoor plumbing and heating that we do, and the capacity to be on a Zoom link that we do, and have the educational opportunities that we do. And their needs their basic needs, survival needs, are being fulfilled. That said, if you were to take away someone's access to the internet in the Western world today, or their access to social media, or their ability to use a cell phone, might they go into quite an agitated state? Might they feel in a very visceral, primal, fearful, anxious way that something that was absolutely needed was not available to them? And then might they operate from need and with the intensity of need rather than want? So a challenging thing in regard to Maslow's triangle hierarchy of needs. Once you get your basic needs met, there's enough bandwidth left over for higher contemplation, for philosophy, for spirituality, for learning and evolution and transformation and love. And the question is, how many distractions in our Western life actually keep us from achieving those things because we're busy with social media, or we're busy with television, or we're busy with reading a fiction novel? Does it make sense that it's true that if a person makes the choice at a certain point on Maslow's hierarchy, that they can arrive at higher consciousness, or experience more excellent experiences of life, more fulfilling, transcendent vantage points? And that said, it's not a guarantee that will occur, because some people become addictively enamored to distracting dynamics of life that are generated via attainment of a Western lifestyle that we then become addicted to, and that other people around the world look at as a brand new standard that they esteem to, and they assume is something that they need and want, and that they drive themselves to try to get. And then once we get that Western lifestyle that seems so much better, it becomes incredibly entraining to the consciousness, so much so that it becomes an obscuration in an unconscious dynamic, so that we become unable to be consciously motivated to operate from love, kindness, care, consciousness, and compassion. It's a paradox, and we get lost in the tribal dynamics of it all too.